Hey guys, what's up? It's Samantha, and this week I'm going to be at memory keeping and talking about all of the books that I read for the week of June 22nd through the 28th. This was my last week at home before I went back to work, and I am using this gorgeous Simply Gilded kit from the subscription box. I loved this so much. I normally don't go for these kits because there's not very much in it besides some full boxes, but I pulled in the washi, the amazing gorgeous washi in this kit, and also these boxes had owls, and owls are one of my favorite animals, so I absolutely had to use this. I made it work. I kept it very white space and pulled in tons of silver foil and some really beautiful pastel pink stickers. I used a lot of paper shire. The pink in this matched her sort of peachy pink tones that she uses in a lot of her stickers just beautifully. And I love the washi banner that I did over the weekend. Just, I made it work. This is different than how I normally plan. Even trying to figure out how to get the date dots to work since there isn't space on her date covers to put a date to the left, if that makes sense. So I did them on top. I don't know how people normally do that. If I'm being honest, can't even remember watching a Plan With Me video or anything like that with a Simply Gilded kit, but it works. The boxes were so pretty. The one thing I will say is that the gel pen that I normally write with does not work on her paper, and there's a lot of ink smearing right now on this spread. So that's a bummer because I really love how this turned out. And now the few places where I wrote on the sticker paper, which is basically just the sidebar because I used a lot of scripts in this week, or wrote directly on the paper. So my sidebar is kind of a smeary mess right now, but that's all right. It's still a really pretty spread. So I'm going to jump into all of the books that I read this week. And the first book that I read was Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee. And this was a book that I requested an ARC of, probably just because of the Charlie Bowater cover, and it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. I liked the ending a lot more than the beginning. I felt kind of ambivalent about it, but the ending, I'd say like the last 25%, was what I wanted the whole book to be. It was faster paced and more adventurous, I suppose. And I was intrigued enough by the ending that I might pick up the sequel. I might not, because I tend to not remember a lot of the details. I'll remember generic things about books, or general, I guess that's a better word, general things about books. I'll remember certain tropes or main plot points or character types if someone's looking for a book with an assassin or something like that. I'll remember things like that, or general themes, feelings about the book. This is definitely a dark YA fantasy. The main character is kind of a tropey, typical strong woman, assassin, YA protagonist. There's just a lot of tropes. And like I said, the beginning is really, really slow. The one thing that I thought was really cool in this book is there's this dark, evil forest, and it reminded me, the descriptions of the forest were really well done. It kind of reminded me of that scene at the beginning of Snow White where she's running through the trees and the trees kind of come alive and they're grabbing at her clothes and are really spooky. And there's a lot of descriptions in there where I was visualizing something like that, but even darker. So that was really cool. And another thing that I appreciated that this book did, just as a teen librarian, because I get people asking me for fantasy with no romance, there is no romance at all in this book. The main relationship, like the driving force relationship in this book, is the friendship between the main character, Saoirse, and her best friend, who I can't remember her best friend's name, which isn't surprising. I forget names a lot, but I can't really tell you much of anything about the best friend. I don't remember anything about her other than what her purpose in the plot was, and I don't remember her being particularly well characterized, but it was refreshing that instead of a generic love interest, that the main character, like, it really has no characterization being the driving force. It's a best friend. So if you're looking for a book with absolutely no romance, this will do it. I think it's something that's going to appeal more to teens than adult readers of YA, which, again, because I'm a teen librarian, I do read for teen interest, not just adult interest in YA. So that's part of my job. But yeah, I really liked how the end had more of the assassin-y goodness that I thought was going to be throughout, since, this main character is training to be a spy, assassin type character. And then there's really no assassin-y death fighting goodness until the very end. And I was like, why wasn't this throughout the whole book? I don't know. I've now spent way too much of this talking about this book. So the next books, which is good because the next books I read, all 4 of the next books I read were the most up-to-date 4 books in Dresden. So Cold Days, Skin Game, Peace Talks, and Battleground. I did get advanced copies of Peace Talks and Battleground. Battleground isn't out until October, and I can't really talk about it. I mean, I can talk about like general things, but I don't want to spoil anyone. So Cold Days, I gave a 2-star, which I feel like is unpopular. It has over a 4.5 on Goodreads, and Dresden's average ratings go up and down a lot. And I feel like different people dislike different things about his books. And so some people will love certain books and then really dislike other ones. And I feel like Cold Days has one of the highest overall average ratings. And I hated it. I hated being in Dresden's head the whole time. Like, the plot was fine, but there is a thing that happens that makes the male gaze even male gazier. And I'm fine with that. It makes sense for the plot, and I'm fine with him having some more sexually aggressive thoughts, but it's brought up over and over and over again. Instead of the reader just knowing, or you kind of, Jim Butcher is showing that Harry is maybe more aggressive or more, because of this thing, and that fighting between what he thinks is right and what his instincts that aren't necessarily his instincts are pushing for him to do, or thoughts, and having that conflict there is fine, but it's very rapey thoughts are brought up over and over and over again, and I found it very upsetting. It was horrifying to just be constantly bombarded with thoughts of, even though they're not acted upon, these like very sexually primitive and aggressive thoughts of like Dresden wanting to sexually assault people. It was really bothersome. And part of this book is him getting control of these like thoughts and urges. It was really upsetting and icky. And also the phrase training bra is now a descriptor for one of the characters, and I found that really troubling. If you remember when I talked about an earlier book, I put a giant asterisk next to it for inappropriate conversations between Dresden and an underage girl. It's that same underage girl who's now an adult, and every time Harry has a sexual thought about her, he's like, I've known her since she was in a training bra. And it's really gross, and I wish it would stop. So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I thought the plot in this was just fine. And again, with similar to how we are told over and over again that Dresden is having these inappropriate thoughts, and they're brought up over and over and over again, instead of just trusting that the reader knows this is going on in the background, or maybe hinting at things, and instead of just being explicitly told over and over again that Harry wants to do non-consensual sexual things to characters in the book. We're told over and over and over again about different exposition things or magic rules. For instance, we are told that, water cancels magical energies repeatedly. So if you've gotten to book 12, or I guess this is 13 at this point, and you don't know that that's a rule of the Dresden universe, and I understand it being brought back up in the first time it happens to remind readers of rules, since these were sort of serialized and the release dates were more spread out. I get that, but sometimes it would be told in multiple chapters back to back to back. Like an editor didn't catch that you'd already been reminded of this rule earlier on, and you don't need to tell me every time that Harry's taking advantage of this, or it hurts Harry that he's over water or something. You don't need to tell me that water cancels magical energy every single time. That sort of thing. It was just very repetitive, and that really bothered me. So, just throwing that out there. And then Skin Game was a 5-star. I loved this. This felt like a return to form to me. There's a crime of the week. There's a heist. There's some awesome villain characters. There's a ton going on. There's plot development. There's character development. I've just found, as much as I love the characters, except for Dresden. I hate Dresden. I'd be like, okay, if I never had to read from him again. But I love all of the side characters so much. And one of my favorite side characters was pretty prominent in this, which made me really happy. And I loved Skin Game so much, and some of the conversations that are had and some plot twists and stuff. I really deeply appreciated it. And then Peace Talks for me was a 5-star, but I can see how people who don't have the ability to read Battleground immediately after wouldn't give it a 5-star. It's definitely reads like a part 1 of 2. This is more character focused, and also I've noticed a lot of people in reviews I'm reading on Goodreads are saying, I haven't read a Dresden book in 7 years, and then I just picked up Peace Talks, and I don't remember why I'm supposed to care. And this is a very political book, and I think I liked it more because I was coming off of binge reading the entire series in a couple of months. So I knew all of the, I remembered all of the little details and things and who everyone was and why it was relevant. And I did feel like the more sexist, not sexist, because I don't think the books are sexist. I do think they're chauvinistic, and I think they're very male-gazy. They are, a lot of those elements felt dialed back. Obviously, Harry still finds, the white vampires sexy and all that stuff, but it's not as, it feels more mature. It feels more modern. It doesn't feel quite, a lot of the stuff in the earlier books wouldn't have flown if they were published in 2020. And you can see that there's been some growth in terms of certain things in the series, though. I feel like there's also, I don't know, I still don't love, there's a certain character who's Native American and has a very racist name, but I feel like Jim Butcher's moving away from the more racist stereotype discussion of his character and abilities, and maybe trying to make it a little more authentic. Still doesn't excuse the very racist name that he's been called throughout the book. But, yeah. And then finally, I read Battleground, which I can't talk about other than I sobbed about halfway through the book. A thing happens and I started crying, and then I couldn't stop crying, which is why over the weekend, all the tear stuff, I lost it and was sobbing, had to bring the trash can and a box of Kleenex to the sofa because I couldn't stop crying. I went downstairs and had Joe hug me because I couldn't stop crying. The back half of Battleground was an emotional roller coaster. I care about these characters so much, and I didn't realize how much I cared about the side characters. I knew I really liked the side characters, but I just was emotionally destroyed by the end of Battleground. It's also an exhausting read. It's 400 and some pages of one long fight. 90% of the book takes place in one evening, and it's exhausting emotionally just reading it. The adrenaline is go, 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 go. I was just completely in a book hangover when I got done with this, which rarely happens to me. I was so just emotionally exhausted by this book, and it was so good. I was emotionally exhausted in the best way. Whenever a book can make you feel that strongly, I don't know. I was so exhausted by it that everything I picked up felt like a pale shadow in comparison. So I don't know. I just couldn't pick up anything. So I've kind of been reading a lot less since I finished this. I felt like I got done with Dresden and was like, well, now what? I mean, there's going to be more books in the series, but not for a while. And I haven't been able to get my reading mojo back. July was kind of a blah reading month. I only read 3/4 of what I normally read, and August has been blah. I just can't get into stuff. So I don't know. I feel like Battleground broke me, guys. But yeah, so that was everything that I read this week. Oh wow, I can't believe this was that long ago, and I feel like Battleground is still affecting my inability to enjoy what I'm reading, which is wild. I honestly can't remember the last time a book did that to me. So yeah, this was my finished spread. I absolutely love how this turned out. Nothing of any note happened this week at all, other than Battleground, because I was just reading Dresden the whole week and being emotionally destroyed. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you in my next one. Bye, guys.